Hi, I'm Andy Bandopadhyay, and I help people share their stories. I'm thrilled to be presenting the Singer Spotlight interview series for the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Today, I'm excited for you to meet my friend Gabriel, who has a story about growing up Catholic, moving 3,000 miles away for college, and then eventually coming out to his parents. I hope you'll enjoy the story that he shares in K 12 schools across the Bay Area.
My name is Gabriel Porrata Vallejo. I was born in Caguas, Puerto Rico, and I sing lower bass in the chorus, which I've been a part of for almost 3 years.
Amazing. What brought you to the chorus in the first place?
I made a big move from the East Coast to the West Coast, following my then fiance, now husband, and I music has always been an important part of my life. So I thought that it would be a great way for me to be musically challenged, to socialize with other queer people, but also to join an organization that I've never had the opportunity of joining before that made such a huge impact on other people's lives.
So, what was the first season like after that first rehearsal?
First season, goodness, it was. There is something about singing on a stage with the name of Gay Men's Chorus attached to a city and having people applaud you with no problem. And to me, that has always been a satisfying moment. Every time I'm on a stage and I sing with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, and people show up and appreciate what we do, that to me is something that it makes me feel very good about the world. And our first season, I got the chance to participate more in the chorus by playing the clarinet, which is one of the things that I love to do. And at this point, I feel like all the seasons have been mixed up. But it was at the same time Lavender Pen Tour happened, and we did bridges. And the first year, in a way, was very intense in a positive way, but it was also very challenging, still in a positive way. But we sang the seven last words of the unarmed, and that was a moment that definitely made me feel I was part of the chorus, but I also had to challenge other people in realizing that we are all different and the same at the same time, and that we come from very different places, and that the intersectionality of who we are is what makes the chorus great.
Looking back now, from the time you joined to where you are, what's been the most rewarding part of chorus?
Rhythm is, my goodness. I think that people get tired of me saying rhythm multiple times, but it was a life changing experience for me. And the reason for that is I've always found my coming out story to be so mundane. And the moment that I started workshopping it, I kept second guessing myself and going like, no one needs to hear this. It's the same story. Boy doesn't know he's gay. He eventually figures it out, tells his parents, and it's done. And I've realized that it's so much more than that. And I've realized that having the experience of sharing my truth with others has given me a level of confidence that I never imagined I could have, and a level of peace that I never knew existed with being who I am. And the most amazing thing is that it's teenagers that are giving me that, because it's the high schoolers that tell me, I feel how you felt about your parents because my parents are very similar. Or I have a friend like your friend Patricia, and I just want to hug her and tell her that I love her. And to me, that's part of the reason why I joined the chorus. It wasn't not just to sing, but it was to create positive change.
It's so beautiful. I love your story. I love every time you tell it, and I love hearing kids' reactions. It's so good. It's so good. For people who aren't familiar with rhythm, could you describe it?
Yeah, so rhythm means reaching youth through music, and it's a program created to basically tell the students about coming out stories and information about the LGBTQ community. It's basically used as a way to engage with the audience. We sometimes ask them questions, we answer them, we also sing to them. So it's not just storytelling, we also have music. And it's an amazing program that allows people to just see that queer people exist and that we're just as normal as anybody else. Now it's second nature. It's like, my name is Gabriel and this is my coming out story, and that's how we start a conversation now.
I love it. Could you actually share just the first couple, maybe the first like 30 seconds of it?
Oh goodness, it's been a while, so I'll try to do my best. Let me see. Okay. My name is Gabriel. I'm a mathematics instructor, and I sing with the San Francisco Gamers Chorus. And when I was growing up, my parents would always tell me, los nenes con los nenes, y las nenas con las nenas. But that never really meant much to me because, after all, I was friends with both boys and girls, and actually any kind of person. So when I was in the 8th grade, Patricia, one of my friends, came out. And I didn't know how to process that information. I was never exposed to anything gay. So I did what any high school student would do at that moment. And I went to my mom and I asked her, Mom, what's a lesbian? Ay, Dios mío, Padre nuestro que estás en los cielos, santificado sea tu nombre, venga a nosotros tu reino. And she kept going and going and going until she looked at me very seriously and said, I think it's best for you to not be friends with her anymore. And this was really hard for me. And I refuted that with my mother. And we kept talking and talking and talking until we both agreed that she should be loved no matter what. And that's how my story starts.
I love it so much. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. If there's somebody out there watching this who has a chance to share their story and workshop it in a similar way, but they're feeling nervous about it, maybe for some of the same reasons you were, that I'm not sure if it's a story worth sharing, or it's so normal, or I don't know, do I really want to do this? What would you tell them?
I think that one of the first things that we need to acknowledge is that it's okay to be vulnerable. I am a person that always has guards up, because you feel protected that way, or at least I do. I feel protected that way, and it's okay to be vulnerable. The chorus specifically gave me a place in which I could be that way and I would be supported. So I think that one of the most important things to be able to share a story like that is to know you have a supportive group. And once you're in that supportive group, then you can start sharing what you think is your coming out story.
So tell me a little bit more about where you grew up.
Caguas is a small city. I lived in the outskirts of it, a little bit more to the south. So San Juan is the capital of Puerto Rico. So if you were to look at that, just keep going south to give you a little idea. I went to a private Catholic school, the same private Catholic school that my grandmother went to and my dad went to, and his siblings and my brother. So it was a family tradition to go there. But I always felt that for a Catholic school, it was very progressive, and they were very hardcore about teaching science, which was one of the things that I was very passionate about besides music. And the thing that I always remember from them is that they accepted people from various religious backgrounds. So you could be Baptist and still go to this school with no problem. And you could talk about your religion. The only requirement was that almost every Wednesday you had to go to Mass. And that made a huge impact on me because I am a person that accepts people with their different cultures. And I think that part of that is having gone to this school in which the expectation was that most people were Catholic, but you still have people that have different beliefs and different belief systems.
What was your family like?
My nuclear family consists of my dad, my mom, and my brother. My brother is older than I am. Um, but if you know stuff about Hispanic family, is that we don't stick to nuclear family. It's so when we talk about extended, I have a total of 19 aunts and uncles, and 3 are only from my dad's side. So that gives me like more than 50 cousins, and after that, I stopped counting. We were very big on getting together and celebrating birthdays, Easter, for example, which is very timely, and we would celebrate a lot of things. In the terms of queerness, at that age that I was living with my parents, I had no idea that I was a queer person, but it wasn't even the idea that was lacking. It was, I guess it was the idea was lacking. I couldn't really conceive of being queer because I didn't know much about queer people. And the things that I learned were from TV, which ridiculed gay characters. They were caricatures. And then in my journey through middle school and high school, when I started having friends that were coming out or being feminine when they seemed to be male, that's what people perceived, then my parents were always like, we don't want you hanging out with that person. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's bad, that's sinful, you shouldn't be there. And I think that in a way, that's part of the reason why I never considered queerness to be something that I could show off or be a part of.
What changed?
I moved. I went to grad school. I went to grad school in Iowa, good old Midwest. The cold was unbearable, but I actually enjoyed it a lot. And part of the thing that I talked about before was that I had a lot of guards up. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I was questioning whether I could be queer or not. And moving allowed me to have the one thing that I didn't have if I stayed home, which was I couldn't disappoint anyone because no one knew who I was back before. And that freedom, because that is a freedom of sorts, allowed me to just go ahead and tell people, no, I'm queer. And it's okay if you assume that I'm dating a woman or a man or whoever you think I am dating. And I never really cared about upsetting anyone because there wasn't nothing for them to compare it to. To them, I had always been queer, which made the whole process of always going back home challenging because I went from being queer to pretending to be straight.
When did that part change?
I came out to my mother first while I was still in grad school. And I think I was 23, 24. And the way my mother processed that was very interesting to me because my parents had been separated at that point about 4 years. And the first words that came out of her mouth were like, oh, I don't know how your dad is going to handle this. I was like, oh, that's interesting that you're mentioning my dad when he's not even here. But that's okay. And now I look at it and I think that was her way of processing the information, kind of like making it seem like he would have a problem with it so that she could have some time to analyze things. And then I continued doing grad school and I was in a relationship and I graduated and I decided to stay in Iowa for that previous relationship. And I thought that it made no sense for someone that didn't know what was going on in my life for me to stay in Iowa. And I decided that it was time for me to tell my dad, I'm staying because I'm dating this person, and that's what's going on.
And then what happened?
And then what happened? My dad actually surprised me. My dad is not a very expressive person when it comes to emotions. And he just told me that he couldn't understand how anyone would choose to be something like that. When I say that phrase to people sometimes I feel like they can misinterpret what it means. What he meant by that was that he knew it was not a choice. He knew it was a part of who I am, and that there is no way that people would choose to be something if it causes them so much suffering with the alienation that you get from society. And my goodness, those have been like the most heartfelt words my dad has ever told me. and that was a great relief. I think my dad was more upset about me not being religious anymore than me being queer.
Any other thoughts or anything else you'd like to share about your chorus experience?
Going back to the theme of guards up, I think that as I kept being in the chorus and the years passed, I felt more comfortable letting my guard down. And what used to be overwhelming became normal. And that allowed me to see the big family that we are. And I'm not trying to say that I didn't see it at the beginning, but it was so much to take in that I didn't interact with many people to begin with because it was too much for me. And now that things are more normal and more faces are more common, and we have been singing for a while together, I have learned to appreciate so much what this family means. And with that, with the word family, it means taking the good and the bad. It's hard to say. I would say it's hard to imagine that the chorus would be perfect because it's not perfect. But what it does is that it brings me a place that I can be okay with not being perfect and working together to better our lives and the lives of others. It gives me sanity. Singing with other people makes me feel connected. Being able to see older gay men and sharing their stories and talking about their history makes me feel like there's a history of my own that wasn't explained or showcased, and now I get the prime seats for it. And also, younger generations make me feel very good because I see the diversity that comes with them. And I'm not necessarily just talking racial diversity, but we are talking about socioeconomic diversity and education. And if we go down the list, we'll be here for 5 more hours. But that makes me feel very good because I see that younger people still want these spaces and still want to create change and still want to fight, when some people go like, well, there's nothing to fight for anymore, which I completely disagree with. There's so much more to fight for. We just need to start thinking outside the box and start helping those that might be less privileged than we are.
That brings me to the last part, which is if you could give one piece of advice to a young queer person today, what would you say?
I think that I will go back a little to what I would have told myself, and give yourself time and allow yourself to feel what you feel or not feel what you don't feel. And don't compare yourself to others because you are you, and you might share a lot of things in common with other people. You might have some things that are not common with other people. And that could be good or bad. It all depends what it is. But you need time to navigate who you are, especially in teenage years. those are some very challenging years when it comes to who am I. That's a horrible question to ask a teenager. So I'm sorry that I posed that question to you, but I think that you just have to be kind to yourself and allow yourself to understand that you are who you are at the moment, and you will be who you become, and you will work for that, and it's okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.